Alrighty, welcome back to the final part of our tutorial where we are making a flyer for a cafe. In the previous video we've got all the foods stuck on our page. I didn't quite finish off putting the shadows on all of the foods, so what I want to do is put some shadows behind the oranges and the sugar cubes. So to do that, we can just choose any one of these layers that already have a shadow on them, such as the pancake. Right click on it and just copy the layer style. Now go to the orange and select the orange copy, the sugar and the sugar copy layers. Right click and paste the layer style. That'll just stick a little drop shadow underneath each of those items. What we might do now is tidy up this layers box because it is looking pretty ugly at the minute. So I'm going to select all the foods. So from the sugar all the way down to the fruit, we will select. That's all the food on the page. Pick it up, drag it and drop it on the folder at the bottom there. So it puts them into a group. And we'll just call that group food. Alrighty, so that's that done. Next thing I'm going to do is bring in a logo for this business. Okay, remember it's a made up business, so I've just found a random logo online. So I've gone to File, let's go to Place Embedded. And we've got vintage restaurant logos here. There's quite a few of them, we're just going to pick one of them. So up they come, you can pick whichever one you want. I'm going to go with this one in the top right. Press tick to place that in, and what I want to do is grab your elliptical marquee tool again and make a selection around that top logo, or whichever logo you want. Okay. We're going to mask it, so go down the bottom and choose the layer mask option. That will chop out everything around that selection. And this layer over here, while it's selected, I want you to right click on it and I want you to rasterize it. Okay, it's going to allow us to apply some make some edits to it in just a moment. Okay, so we've got this layer rasterized. What we're going to do now, zooming in a bit here, is get rid of the background and change its color. Alright, so to get rid of the background on this layer, that's that white section, we're going to go over to our eraser here and we're going to hold our mouse down and we're going to select the magic eraser tool. The tolerance up the top, I want you to set it to 80. Okay, it's probably set on 32 by default. Bump it up to 80. And what I'm going to get you to do is just click on the white sections of this logo. Okay, so that gets rid of the main part. Then you got to click in the chef's hat there, inside the A's, inside the E, the D, the AND symbol. Oops. Make sure you zoom in nice and close so you get these little ones. There we go. So you should have a logo. It is black and blending in with that background quite a bit, but we've got rid of all the white from it. So we've got rid of the background. Okay. From here, to make this logo stand out on the background, we want to change its color. So over in your layers panel here, just double click in the empty space next to the name of it. And that'll bring up your layer style box. We just want to add a color overlay and ensure that the color is white. Should be a blend mode that's normal. The opacity is 100. Click OK. And now you've got a pretty good looking logo that stands out nicely on the background. So what we're simply going to do now is just grab our move tool, make sure that the show transform controls are on. I'm just going to resize it a little bit. It's not going to be too big. And we'll just stick him up the top there in the middle somewhere. So you want it basically running through the middle of this heart. So what you can do, press Ctrl R to show your rulers around the outside of the page, and we can bring out the ruler, drag it and drop it into the center of the page, which is about there. Just make sure your restaurant logo is pretty much in the middle of that blue line. Alright, so that looks alright so far. Next thing I'm going to do is add some text in. So let's grab our text tool. Up the top, I want you to choose Arial for your font. And we might just have regular Arial for this one. The size, let's make it 12 point. And we're going to click on the page somewhere down here. In capital letters, we're just going to write presents. You can highlight that and press this little folder at the top to bring up our font properties. I want you to change the tracking, which is this little VA here. I want you to make it 400, and that puts a bit of space between each of the letters. The bigger that number, so if I turn it up 600, 800, 1000, you'll see that it adds more space between each letter, but I think about 400 will probably look pretty good. So 400 for the tracking. And just use your move tool to move that up and stick it somewhere near the logo. Okay. After that, we're going to write in the word breakfast. Okay, I'm going to use a special font for that. The font we're going to use is called, oh, I don't even know how to say it, Amontillatus or something, I don't know. You'll need to double click on that font anyway and install it on your computer if you haven't done so. So I'm just installing that now. Now back in Photoshop we'll have that font installed, so let's grab our text tool and we're simply going to write breakfast. Not in capitals this time, just a capital B at the start. Highlight the text, change the tracking from 400 back to 0. That font is that one I told you before. And the size we're going to make huge, so even 72 is too small, so we're going to have to type in, I reckon about 185 is going to look good. So let's grab our move tool and we're going to position this about here. Alright, you want to get it pretty much in the center, like that. Okay, so looking at that now, our food's too big, so we're going to need to resize these croissants, starters. They do about there. Press the tick at the top. These blueberries, I'm going to have to resize them a bit. Press the tick. Little blueberries themselves, we might have to click on and just move them around a bit as well. You might have to give them a little resize. Something like that should look pretty good. So that's the top of our poster looking a lot better. Might even make this logo just a smidge bigger. Stick it back in the center. That's the top of our logo. Our flyer. Looking really good. So our restaurant presents breakfast. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to come down the bottom. We're going to add in a little bit more text. Okay, so the next bit of text using the text tool, the type tool, sorry. Back to Arial for our font. This time, what can we do this one? We might make it bold. I might even change the color. I might just click on the orange to get that color orange there. It's a nice bright color. Should stand out well in the background. What size do we want? We'll change it to about 16-point font. And the tracking, which is the space over here between each letter, we'll make it about 300. Alright, we're going to click on the page and we're going to write in capitals, every day at 7 AM. Use your move tool to pick it up and center that below that love heart somewhere. All those coffee beans, sorry. Something like that. Now these two plates down here are a bit too big, so we're going to have to resize them so we can fit a little bit more text in. So use your move tool just to give them a bit of a resize. You can shuffle them around a little bit. There we go. That's not looking too bad. We'll come back and play with those plates in a minute just to get them perfect. But the text we want to put in here is the address of the company. So we'll grab the type tool again. What are we going to do here? We're going to have Arial. It's going to be bold. We'll make it size 18. We're going to center the text in the center alignment and the color is going to be white. The tracking is going to be back to 0, so there's no major space between each letter in what I write. And we're going to write in down here, just number 1, Marshall, whoops, I'll do it in capitals. Number 1, Marshall Street, Goondiwindi. Okay, we'll move that up and center it about there. Might press the T tool or just grab the type tool again and just click back in that text. I'll press enter maybe a couple of times and put in a phone number. So 07, let's make one up here, 4670 0333. So that's got the address and a phone number sitting in there nicely. So that can go, yeah, about there, I reckon. And the final thing I want to put in is the website address for this restaurant. Again, I'm just going to have to make one up here. So choose Arial for your font. I'm going to choose narrow for the style. Leave it at 18 points, and we might go for 200 tracking this time. So a bit of space between each letter. Right, www.restaurant.com. Not in capitals anymore, we're back into the lowercase font, and that can go somewhere right at the bottom. Make sure it's pretty much centered. So nudge it around with the arrow keys if need be. Let's get this text all spaced out nicely. I'm going to remove this blue ruler now by dragging it off to the side. Now I can see my poster a bit clearer. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how the font's sitting. Logos look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all this text in my layers panel, including the logo here. And I'm going to drag all that text and logo down to the folder, and in that group I'll just call it text. So now you've got text, food, coffee and background layers all looking pretty sweet. Last thing we might do is just a couple of color adjustments to make it look a little bit better, make the colors pop out. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use our adjustments here. Alright, so I'm going to hit the brightness and contrast first of all. Okay, and I'm going to turn the brightness up to 6. That'll just brighten the whole page up, and the contrast makes the darks darker and the lights lighter. We'll make it 8. Okay, and then we can just close that box. If you want to see what adjustment that did, hit the little eye symbol on and off a few times. You can just see it got a little bit brighter. So the colours popped a little bit more. The next adjustment we're going to make is the colour balance. This is what we're really going to adjust. I think at the moment the colours are a bit too warm, which means a little bit too yellow. And we're going to tone that down. You'll see what happens when we do it. So little scales, just click on that, and that's your colour balance. What we're going to adjust here is we're going to change it to cyan to about -13-ish. Doesn't have to be spot on. Magenta, so move it to the magenta side to about -7. And then the blue over here to about 11-ish, like so. Now with this box still open, where it says tone, we were just playing with the mid-tones then. I want you to change it now, and we're going to select shadows. And for the shadows, we're going to change the cyan to -14, or around there. The magenta, which is about -10, and we're going to go into the blue side here and move it up to about 7. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the tone box and go and play with the highlights now. So the brighter parts of the image we're going to adjust. Move it to the cyan to about -7. And then go to the magenta side to -11-ish. And then to the blue side, 13. Or around there. Alright, you can close that box now. And I want you to toggle the color balance visibility on and off and have a look at the difference. So you can see it's really warm colors to begin with, and then when we apply those color balance changes, it cools it down by applying a few bluish, pinkish kind of tones. Okay, and I think it makes it look a lot better. The next thing we want to do is a gradient map. Okay, so a gradient map is the very last adjustment that you can make here. So click on the last option, which is the gradient map. And from the drop down box, I want you to choose the purple and orange one. So it goes like this. Okay, don't stress, we haven't ruined your picture. So what we're going to do now is change the blend mode from normal. And there's an option to screen it. So click on screen. Okay, and that slightly fixes the problem, but we're still going to work on it a bit more by changing the opacity here. Right down to about 8 or 9%. Okay, so there's a slight purple and orange gradient running through the background there. Okay, if you toggle it on and off, you'll just see it. Alright, might even turn that opacity down a little bit more, maybe 7 or 8% would be better. Okay, that looks pretty good. And the last thing I'm going to do now is just make the food pop out a little bit more by making them slightly brighter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab my brush tool. I'll make sure the color's white, and I'm going to go and choose a nice soft brush, so something like this one here. Okay, and I'm simply going to click, actually I need to make a new layer first of all. I'm simply going to click once, adjust my brush, twice, 3 times, And I'm just painting white straight on top of the food. Okay, from there we're going to change to the blend mode to overlay. And then we're going to change the opacity here. Drop it right down below 20%, maybe about 15 to 20% will probably look good. And if you would turn that layer on and off, you'll see it just brightens up the food a little bit, gives a little bit of punch. And from there, I think we are finally done. Okay, that is our poster all done. If you want, you can grab your move tool. You can pick up bits and pieces and just shuffle them around a little bit if you think they're a little bit off center or need a bit of an adjustment. It's up to you. Okay, but that is basically how our poster is going to look. So you can save it as a PSD document if you'd like, if you want to come back and play with these layers a bit later on. Or what you can do, actually, I might fix these layers before we finally save it. So these last few layers we put in, the adjustments, we better put them in their own folder and call them adjustments. Done. So that's a nice neat layers box. So we're going to save now. So we're going to File, Save As, and if you're going to print this, you would probably save it as a PDF. Okay. Another way we could save it in high quality is as a JPEG, and that's what we're going to save as today. Okay, it's going to save room in our account by making a nice small file size, but it's going to keep the resolution nice and high. So we'll just call it Breakfast Flyer. It's going to be a JPEG image, and we'll click Save. Little box comes up asking you what quality you want to set it at. You choose a quality. I reckon about 10 might be a decent quality. And we'll click on, actually it's going to come out a pretty large file size, maybe even about 8 might be alright today. And then we'll click OK. Finally, that's it. So I'll catch you in the next video.